Good evening. I'm Mr. Lafayette, and welcome to 60 Minutes. Tonight, we bring you an exclusive interview with Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the convicted bomber of the 2013 Boston Marathon. It has been 10 years since the tragic attack that claimed 3 lives and injured more than 250 others. Today, Tsarnaev sits on death row since March of 2022. That is, after the Supreme Court of the United States reversed the First Circuit Court of Appeals decision on a 6-3 vote. His guilt is beyond dispute. But what led him to commit such an act of terror? In this extraordinary interview, we aim to shed light on the motives behind his actions and explore the mind of a convicted terrorist.
Dzhokhar, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. Let's start with your life before the bombing. Many who knew you described you as an ordinary young man. Can you tell us about your upbringing and how that led you down this path?
Certainly. I was born in Kyrgyzstan and moved to the United States with my family when I was 8 years old. Growing up, my parents instilled in me a strong sense of cultural and religious identity. I was a regular teenager, played sports, and had friends. But as I got older, I began to feel a growing sense of anger and frustration towards perceived injustices committed by the West against Muslim countries.
Did this anger manifest itself in any particular way? Were there warning signs that you were heading down a dangerous path?
Looking back, there were signs. I started becoming more religious and began to embrace a more radical interpretation of Islam. I was influenced by online extremist propaganda and started isolating myself from my friends who didn't share the same beliefs.
On April 15, 2013, the Boston Marathon was rocked by 2 explosions near the finish line.
It was a day filled with anger and a distorted sense of vengeance. Tamerlan and I had planned the attack together. We believed that the United States was responsible for the suffering of innocent Muslims overseas. We thought that by inflicting harm on innocent civilians, we could somehow send a message and make a statement.
The bombing resulted in deaths of 3 people and injured hundreds. Looking back, what do you feel about those actions?
I can't change the past, and I deeply regret the pain and suffering my actions caused. I can't find justification for the loss of innocent lives. I wish I had made different choices.
After the bombing, a massive manhunt was launched to capture you and your brother. Tamerlan was killed in a confrontation with the police, and eventually you were apprehended. Can you describe how you felt during that time?
I was terrified and filled with remorse. I realized the magnitude of what we had done. The loss of my brother and the consequences of our actions became overwhelming. I knew I would face justice, and I accept the sentence I received.
Many survivors and families of the victims have expressed their pain and their anger towards you. Have you thought about how your actions impacted their lives?
Every day, I carry the weight of what I did. I can never fully comprehend the pain and suffering I caused. I can only offer my deepest apologies to those affected. I understand their anger and resentment towards me.
Dzhokhar, as we conclude this interview, I want to give you an opportunity to reflect on your actions and share any lessons you've learned.
I've had a lot of time to reflect on the choices I made. I've come to realize that violence and hatred only perpetrate more violence and suffering. It's crucial to promote understanding, compassion, and dialogue among people of different backgrounds and beliefs. My hope is that my story can serve as a cautionary tale, and those can learn from my mistakes.
Thank you for sharing your perspective, Dzhokhar. We appreciate you sitting down with us. Thank you.
As our interview with Dzhokhar Tsarnaev comes to an end, it's clear that behind the convicted terrorist lies a complex individual grappling with the consequences of his actions. The scars of the Boston Marathon bombing will remain forever, but perhaps there is value in examining the factors that led someone to commit such an act of terror in the hope of preventing future tragedies. We have an exclusive interview with Ed Davis, the former Boston Police Commissioner, to recount his experiences during the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. As the man responsible for leading the law enforcement response during the city's darkest hour, Evans offers a unique perspective on the events that unfolded that fateful day. Join us as we delve into the mind of a seasoned officer who confronted terror head-on.
Commissioner Davis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, can you take us back to April 15th, 2013 and explain to us what were your initial thoughts and reactions when the bombing started?
That day started as a joyous celebration of athleticism and camaraderie. When the first explosion occurred, it was clear that something terrible had happened. My priority was to ensure the safety of the people and maintain order amidst the chaos. We immediately activated our emergency response protocols and coordinated with other law enforcement agencies to secure the scene and assist the injured.
The bombing sent out a widespread concern and emotion filled with fear and confusion. How did you manage to stay so calm and effectively lead your other officers to help the community?
In moments of crisis, it's essential to stay focused and trust in the training and expertise of your officers under your command. We had drilled for scenarios like this, and the teamwork and dedication displayed by our law enforcement personnel were nothing short of extraordinary. We remained resolute in our commitment to protecting the city and bringing those responsible to justice.
After the bombings, an intense manhunt was conducted to locate and find the suspects, ultimately identified as the Tsarnaev brothers. Can you walk us through that intense period of time when you were trying to find them?
The manhunt was a highly challenging and stressful time. Our primary objective was to ensure the safety of the public while bringing the perpetrators to justice. It was a collaborative effort with numerous agencies working together seamlessly. We relied on our intelligence gathering, surveillance technology, and the support of our community. It was an emotional roller coaster, but the determination and resilience of our officers prevailed.
During the manhunt, one suspect was ultimately killed, and the other, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, was finally captured. What was going through your mind when the final arrest was ultimately made?
When we apprehended Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, there was a sense of relief that he could no longer cause harm. However, it was also a moment of reflection to the lives lost and the suffering endured. We understood that our work was far from over, and we needed to ensure a fair trial and a just outcome for the victims and their families.
Commissioner Davis, after the bombings, Boston showed a remarkable sense of strength and unity. How did the city come together during this difficult time?
Bostonians are resilient by nature. The response from the community was overwhelming. People opened their homes, offered support to the victims, and displayed an unwavering spirit of solidarity. The events of that day brought out the best in humanity and reinforced the importance of standing together in the face of adversity.
Thank you for meeting with us today.
Of course.
As we conclude our interview with former Commissioner Ed Davis, where we are reminded of the courage and dedication displayed by the law enforcement community during the Boston Marathon bombing. From chaos and tragedy emerged a city that stood tall, resilient in the face of terror. Join us next week for another episode of 60 Minutes. Good night.